Hello and welcome to an Everyday Canines video. We're on the running contact series and we're now moving on to the next stage. So we're introducing the top plank to our dogs as they're learning their running contacts. We've switched to Swift because she knows this stage. Magpie hasn't got to this stage yet. So we've worked our way all up the dog walk down plank. We've progressed every time we've gone successful. We've understood that failures are part of the process. One thing I didn't mention as we were going is going back when you have failures. At what point do you go back? So say you were getting successes halfway up the down plank and then you went to 3/4 and you got failure, failure, failure. At what point do you say I need to go back? This is always a tricky question and it does very much depend on your dog and how they cope with failure. Because I do a lot of shaping games with my dogs, they cope very well with failure and it actually is what spurs them on to keep learning because they are adjusting themselves and doing different things to see what gets success. However, if you had a dog that was underconfident, you'd be very careful about how many failures it could have. We all have different dogs. So it might be a case that if I've had 3 failures, I need to go back a stage. I avoid going back to a safe place, if you like, on the success scale in my training too often, because the problem can become the dog fails at a certain level, you take it back to the level it gets it right, yeah. The dog doesn't learn to get beyond that level. It just gets stuck in this repeat situation of it gets so far, it fails, you take it back, oh, I can do it now. It ends up learning that it doesn't learn how to overcome that failure. It just learns that if I get it wrong, I'll go back to a place where I know and I'll just go back to the safe place. So you saw with Magpie, when I moved her up, she had 3 failures quite quickly. In fact, it might have been 4, but I think it was 3. And I still carried on at that level and I knew she was going to get it eventually, and she did. And I wasn't worried that she'd had failures. Of course, I wouldn't want to end a session on a failure, and if it was a case that we'd had lots of failures, then she had a really good success, that would be where I ended it. It's one of those things that I can't say to you definitely, if you've had this many failures, you really ought to go back. What might be something you could do is if you've had 3 or 4 failures and you think your dog is really struggling, go back once to that easier place or the place they got it right, then go back again, working back upwards again. But it's something you've got to really adapt to suit your dog. Anyway, we're now going to start working further back along the plank. Now, one thing to bear in mind, on the top plank, the dog is running in a different way to on the down plank because this is a straight line. When they hit the down plank, they're obviously at an angle, so though they're going to still be running, and the angles have changed since we originally had dog walks, haven't they? They are still going to be effectively running down a slope. There is going to be a slight braking motion required to hit the contact. Depending on the dog and depending how fast they go in general will depend on how much of a braking motion is necessary, but nearly all dogs will have to adjust their stride just a little, maybe even not noticeably, to be able to go down that down plank successfully. So when I'm first teaching this, I've got to teach them that motion. They're going from flat to a slope. So when you watch a dog doing a running contact, you will see they usually leap this point. They usually go from here where Swift is to here and they just leap straight over it. I think few dogs, unless they're going slow, and then that's not a running contact, walk this bit. So when I'm working back to the top plank, I'm going to be looking to go from here because this is the point where I would anticipate Swift jumping to get her stride down this plank. And it's just what they do. It's the natural motion for them as they're going from the straight to the flat to do a little leap here. We're not doing a big leap, we're just doing part of the stride to reach there. Okay, I'm going to go around the other side of the dog walk so that you can see what I'm doing. Wait, so I'm going to be here. Go! Good girl. On a straight line, Swift rarely misses her dog walk these days. Good girl. Okay, come back here. So I would anticipate with a baby dog, I would anticipate that first one being either slow. Can you come back a little bit more? Let's just shuffle you back. Either slow, hesitant, or a miss. Go. Good girl. That's just something I would automatically assume because they're having to now learn about this changing pattern. Swift. So we're going to keep moving back on our down plank. Go. Looking to get the perfect stride as we're going to go down. Now, Swift knows her job. She's going to get this right. But obviously you're going to get failures. So you're going to go back and forth. You might get to here in one session. Go! Good girl. You might only get to here. So you just keep working it back until you can do the whole top plank with the dog running down. Come this way. Swift, come here. Go! Good girl. Now, one thing to bear in mind is where do you stand so you can see what they're doing. I'm standing here and I can watch Swift and I know what her line looks like when she goes down. But with Magpie, this now starts to get complicated and I would have to start moving and being over here so I could see her foot stride on there, because it's actually quite hard to know what your dog is doing from behind. I know what Swift does so I can see. Go! Good girl. But you're probably going to find that you're going to start to need possibly someone else to help you. Either be able to ask your dog to stop here and wait while you set yourself up in a position to look. That is certainly something to train. Swift, come here. Swift. Swift, come here. Wait, wait. So be here so you can see. Go! Good girl. Or have someone hold the dog. Because I train on my own all the time, I prefer to be able to ask my dog to wait and just say, wait there till I get myself in a position where I can see. One thing to bear in mind the whole way we're doing this is I'm trying to make it not important where I am. So the whole way through this, I am not pointing at the dog walk. I am not leaning over the dog. I am not doing anything to trigger, as far as I know, to trigger that behaviour. You see some people and they're running down the dog walk, they're pointing at it. I did that with Merlin, but I don't do it with my dogs now. I want them to understand this behaviour all by themselves. So I'm out of the picture. So I'm not pointing, I'm not attempting anything. I'm just standing here and the dog is getting it. I'm unimportant. And even at this early stage, I'm making myself unimportant. So we've got the top plank going along. The next step is adding in the up plank. So we'll talk about that in the next video. This is probably going to take you several sessions to get right. Wait. Obviously you'll do both sides. Go! Good girl. As I say, it's probably going to take you a few sessions to get right. Now, I can see that Swift is not going as deep on eye contact as she can. That's because we're lacking momentum at this moment in time, and I know that. So that's what we'll talk about in the next video when we start adding in our up plank. So if you enjoyed this video, you might subscribe to us on YouTube. You can hit the bell button and that will give you notifications of new videos. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, and I hope to see you all again very, very soon.